if you feel like you're at the end of your rope, just tie a knot at the bottom of it and just hold on until you're done. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you for the praise and worship singers. Thank you for the band. Thanks, everyone. Hello, Doris and Tanya and Jeff and Sarah, Lucy, Leslie, Heather, Jerry, Sharon, Katie, and Rhonda. I'm Reverend Rick, and I'm proud and honored to be one of the staff ministers here at the Center for Spiritual Awareness. This morning's sermon title is 2 is too many. I have mentioned before that I grew up in Detroit, and I didn't live outside of Michigan until I was in my mid-20s when I moved to Tampa, Florida. And I learned a number of lessons living away from my family. Many of these lessons cannot be shared here. That's for another time and another place. I was one of the hospital directors at this large hospital, and when I arrived, I picked up a very large plan for a purchase of a very big dollar amount of equipment. Being new in town, the sales representative made an appointment with me to meet me. I was standing in the reception area of my office talking to two of my staff members, one male and one female. Both were wearing hospital scrubs, and I was standing there in a shirt, suit, and tie, looking very nice and formal for Tampa, actually. When the saleswoman entered the room, she started engaging my blue-eyed male staff member who was in scrubs instead of me. What makes a person make such an assumption? Think about it. It's Tampa. 30% of the population is Cuban, and I can pass as long as I don't open up my mouth because I can't speak Spanish. My staff members were in scrubs, and I am in a shirt and tie. Now, it's funny, and it was very funny, to watch my staff because neither one of them said a word or even took a breath. They just wanted to see how I was going to handle this. And I'm sure you have figured out that I'm shy and soft-spoken and easily intimidated. By the way, my staff knew I moved from Detroit, a place with a reputation for being easygoing. My staff members did not say a word or breathe. They just both pointed to me at the same time. Where is God in this? Where is God in this is not a criticism or a challenge to God. It's not a question about God's love at all, because I believe God is in everything. And sometimes we have to look deeply for God, for the good, for divine love. And Lord, these days, I get a lot of practice. Regardless of the evil, when I am at a loss to understand, I know it's time to look for the God in it. See, life only comes from life, and how can conscious life come from non-life? Our spiritual principle teaches us that there is unity of all life because all life comes from the one life. God is infinite in its ability to express through everything that it creates. Life comes from life, and there is unity of all life. Yes, you, me, and even the sales rep. But where is God in this? Life. Life is the self-conscious spirit. It is the self-existent intelligence in the universe. It reveals itself in all of creation. Now, if you think of God as Santa Claus or a magician who makes something change into something that it is not, you probably won't make sense of what I'm talking about, but just hold on. Now, let us recognize that we're all human, and I'm human and subject to do the wrong thing at least once a year. And everything in our experience is either a call for love or an expression of love, a wise woman said earlier today. And then she says, no exceptions. So now, in this encounter between the sales rep and me, who is calling for love? Believe me, inside of me, it was bouncing back and forth like a tennis ball on the table. Do I need love or does she need love? Do I need love or does she need love? But where is God in this? Did the sales rep mean any harm? Probably not. I control the resource, and it's really not smart to mess with the one who controls the resources. Was she just a racist? Or is she operating with a consciousness that comes from a culture of the American caste system? Isabel Wilkerson wrote Caste, The Origins of Our Discontents. It's a great read. However, it's a hard read. How cruel people can be. It's a hard read and even harder to believe that when black men were lynched and hung from trees, it was a spectacle of entertainment. No trial, because a black man or a black woman in many states were not considered 100% human. And they sold postcards of the lynched men hanging from the tree. There were 5,000 lynches documented between 1882 and 1968. 1968 is in my lifetime. Let's not forget, it really hasn't been that long. We don't really have to go back too far. And there were more lynchings than this, they just weren't all documented. Because there was little justice at the time. In certain states, a person could be lynched on the spot. Does this sound familiar? Accused, judged, and subject to capital punishment in your own home or on the curb of the street. In the first 8 months of 2020, police have killed on the spot at least one black person a week. And is the world just watching? There are only 2 states in the union that have not had an incident this year. Now, I'm really not bashing anyone, I'm just reporting the facts. You draw your own conclusions. My parents adopted me at birth. My adopted mother was born in Mississippi, historically the state with the largest number of lynchings. And she told me that she left Mississippi at 14, never to return, because her last vision of Mississippi was a black man lynched and hanging from a tree. Somewhere between 10 and 15 million were enslaved. And an additional 40% died in the travel from Africa. They were packed in a boat so tightly, it was compared to books on a library shelf. For every 100 slaves that made it to the colonies, 40 additional died. Chattel slavery allows slaves to be treated as property. Slaves were bought and sold, insured, rented, leased, lent, and willing to be used as to settle a debt. They were purchased for as little as $200, the equivalent of $6,000 today. Do you really believe I am only worth $6,000? A human life valued at $200. Families were split up in tribes who spoke the same language. were kept from each other so that they would not conspire together to free themselves. America's untouchables. The history of policing in America, and I am not talking about the current police, but the origin of the police was to recapture escaped slaves. Once slavery was outlawed, the former slave masters were given a government supplement to subsidize the wealth they lost. We didn't just get crazy. We have been crazy a long time. Slavery was replaced by sharecropping and convict leasing. Convict leasing is the origin of the prison system. Once arrested, detainees were taken and placed on plantations, and they had to work for their keep. In 1898, 75% of Alabama's entire state revenue came from convict leasing. The economic foundation of the U.S. and Britain was from exploitation until the industrialization took over. Today, we spend $80 billion on incarceration for just 2 million prisoners. Families pay 40 cents per email and $25 for a 15-minute call. The average family spends $13,000 during the course of an incarceration. And $2.9 billion is the fees that are paid to the commissary and for phone calls. Half of the fees that are collected, though, actually go toward the lobby that does not want prison reform. So you may say, it's too bad they're in prison. But what if you were caught doing something illegal, like speeding, and you went to jail? Let the one who has no sin cast the first stone. There are private prisons across the country. And why do we enslave, and why have we been enslaved? Because it made plantation owners some of the richest people in the world, in the top 1% at the time. Sharecropping was responding to the loss of free slave labor of the former slaves who went back or stayed on their plantation and continued to work there because there were no other options. Chattel slavery, sharecropping, Jim Crow laws, and the prison system are all different versions of slavery. Now, I teach that there is no devil, no supernatural evil, and I know evil resides in the minds of people, but you have to wonder. Despite my emotional response, though, it was a decision and choice of the people who participated to make money. How do we know? The slave owners defended their position with the Bible. Nothing was supernatural about that. And if we believe in reaping and sowing, should we be surprised that we will reap at least 400 years of oppression in return for the 400 years of slavery? Where is God in this? See, you have to look deep for it, really deep. Another 12 million indigenous American Indians were killed in the genocide of the American Indians between 1492 and 1900. Nazi Germany learned genocide from the U.S. According to Isabel, Nazi Germany used the U.S. system of slavery as a foundation for its murder of Jews and homosexuals, Jehovah's Witnesses, people with disabilities, and others, learning from the U.S. experience, which created an environment that resulted in the death of 6 million Jews in just a few years. And the world watched. The justification was eugenics, selective breeding of humans and forced sterilization of anyone undesirable. But who gets to choose who's undesirable? One has to wonder, where is God in this? Isabel describes that there are 8 pillars to a caste system, whether it is in India, the US, or Nazi Germany. And does this sound familiar? Divine will, purity, hierarchy, dehumanization, cruelty, superiority. Familiar? The 8 pillars of a caste system, divine will. God has ordained this system. Heritability, a person's caste is acquired at birth and passed to children. Endogamy, that you can't marry across castes. Laws against interracial marriage existed until 1968. Yes, in my lifetime. Purity and pollution, that the dominant caste is considered pure, and we must protect the pure, the blue bloods, America's version of the British aristocracy. In areas of India, the untouchables wore bells to signal their arrival. Occupational hierarchy. The desirable occupations are saved for the pure. Dehumanization and stigma dominate caste deliberately, which robs people of their individual and human dignity. Terror and cruelty. Brutal treatment was used to enforce the system, and it was called lynching. And 8, inherent superiority and inferiority. The dominant class is presumed to be superior. So let me ask again, does this sound familiar? Now everyone, take a breath. My question is, can one person make a difference in an American caste system? The day after Martin Luther King was killed in 1968, Jane Elliott, a teacher in a small all-white Iowa town, divided her 3rd grade class into blue-eyed and brown-eyed groups and gave them a lesson on discrimination. After 30 years, the 3rd grade class reunion is described and its lasting impact in a video on PBS called The Class Divided. You should watch it. It is the highest demand video on PBS. But let me warn you, you will feel frustration, you will feel anger and pain when we confront the bias and the inequality of it all. Jane divided the class into blue-eyed and brown-eyed. For the whole day, she told them the blue eyes are better, smarter, deserve more recess, food, and the brown-eyed are dumb. The blue eyes loved it, and the brown eyes were devastated. They screamed back and they acted out, and brothers with brown eyes fought brothers with blue eyes. Children who had been friends were now in conflict. They were mad and they were angry. The next day, she told the brown-eyed that they were better than the blue-eyed, and the same behavior was demonstrated. The brown-eyed mistreated the blue-eyed, and the blue-eyed were humiliated. She academically tested the groups. On each day of the better group, the results were better than the day that they were the oppressed. What have we done to people when they are told by society that they are not valued just simply because of their color? America's untouchables. Can one person make a difference in America's caste system? Yes, she made a difference. And she made a difference for years until she got national attention. And when she got national attention, the community said she had to stop because black people might move to town. Now, we often hear, what would Jesus do? But I think I'm going to talk about what he did do. So the Good Samaritan was an untouchable. The woman at the well of Samaria was an untouchable. The woman with the issue of blood was an untouchable. The 10 lepers were untouchable. Do you hear the theme? God cares about the untouchables, and God can turn this around. Can one person make a difference in a caste system? Jesus did. Gandhi did. He defeated and defended all of the East Indians against colonization. And the philosophy of nonviolent resistance still resides with his name. Martin Luther King did. Reverend Dr. Georgia did when she created CSA. And the notorious Ruth Bader Ginsburg did. From a Jewish family, and some would consider untouchable, one of 9 women in a class of 500 at Harvard. And the dean told the 9 women, don't you feel bad because you're taking a seat from a man. She left and went to Columbia University and came out as valedictorian of her class because God turned it around. Now, she graduated, thank God, in 1959, something that happened before my lifetime. She worked at the ACLU and argued in front of the Supreme Court. She defended the rights of women and men. She helped pass 5 laws for gender equality. Employers cannot discriminate against employees because of their gender or their reproductive choices. State-funded schools must have women and must admit women. Women have the rights of financial independence and equal benefits. Men are entitled to the same caregiving and Social Security rights as women. That did not always exist. And juries must include women. You know what? In all honesty, society really doesn't change until women are treated equally. And thank you for all you've done. See, no one is perfect, but each contributed their part to improving the caste system. I think there is one very important thing about untouchables, though. They are kept down. See, they are prevented from improving their circumstances. See, untouchable means broken and oppressed and depressed. They are held down. It is not a passive act on the part of the oppressor. When it comes to oppression, everyone is either contributing to the problem or assisting in eliminating the problem. There are no one who's on the sidelines here. There is no neutral. You are either in it to change the world or contributing to the fact that it won't. And it does not take 2. It just takes you. It takes you, yes, you. 2 cannot walk in the same steps. One of the 2 is fulfilling their calling, and the other one is not. See, we're not alone, but we need everyone to do exactly what they are called to do. What they are called to do. Jesus, Jane, RBG, MLK. See, God turns it around. What are you called to do? 2 is too many to do your part. God did his part, Jesus does his part, so did Martin Luther and Jane Elliott and her classroom of 3rd graders. 8-year-olds. She made a difference with 8-year-olds. So what is our excuse? As the world watches the injustice, what are you called to do? Where is God in this? God is sitting in your chair. God is watching me with your eyes. God is listening with your ears, and God is walking in your shoes. God is in every fraction that we have. God is in the last caste-like behavior that we made. See, many people are not outright racist, we are all products of a caste society, and we must look for God inside of us. See, I think that our current social and political environment is telling us something. It's time to eliminate the problem of oppression in the caste system. One black person is killed per week by law enforcement. Are we contributing to the problem, or are we assisting in eliminating the problem? Everyone, including everyone, will reap what you sow. It all comes back, remember, and it comes back with interest. So are we acting like the world did during the Holocaust? Remember, the world watched. Two cannot be called to do the same work. You are called to do it. The work is right where you are. You are revealing God right where you are. It's right where you are. We are called to express God in all of creation, and we are doing anything other than expressing God in creation. We are walking not in our calling, and we are living far beneath our privilege. We are walking in someone else's calling, and two is too many. I agree. This has been a tough week, right? The death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg and her proposed replacement. And I am thankful that Ruth fulfilled her calling. She revealed God in her world. We can look to the White House, the outhouse, or the Supreme Court, and I am praying for the compassionate people. However, maybe we are looking in the wrong direction. Maybe we're looking outward when we should be looking inward. God can turn it around through us, not them, through us. Every one of us has all the power we need to reveal God as we were called to in creation. Because God can turn it around. What are you called to do? Just look at your life. It's all there. And so it is. Amen.